for those who I don't know, my name's Erica Schertz, and it's very exciting because I have my mentor, who's all the way from Indiana, to come work with you all and work with us at the string school. And Mimi is very near and dear to my heart because when I was graduating from my undergrad, I realized that there were a lot of holes in my playing, and I wasn't playing in tune like I wanted to, and I didn't feel like I could make it as a professional musician. And I went and studied pedagogy and violin with Mimi, and I didn't think, I thought I would be able to teach but not play, and because of her rehabilitation of my playing, I now can play professionally and have this great school that I'm running thanks to Dorothy and everything that she built up. And so I have lots to thank from this woman, and it's so wonderful to have you all here. So you probably have all read about her and know who Mimi is, so I'll let her just take it away from here.
Okay, thank you. So thank you to Erica, who basically I could give her the information, but she had to practice in order to achieve what she's done, which is, as we know as teachers, is always the case. She has given me a very big assignment within a very short amount of time. She would like me to go over initial setup things, which I will do, and then segue right into shifting, which is always a topic of interest and one of my favorite topics. So I will do the best to be very efficient in my presentation. If you have any questions along the way, just please let me know. Just briefly, I want to give you a little background of where I've come from, because that impacts everything that we do as we go through our teaching lives and our playing lives. I grew up with a first teacher who was very wonderful and very nice, but I think I didn't begin to really understand how to play the violin until much later in my life. My major influences were Tadeusz Bronsky, who was a teacher from Poland who came to Bloomington off and on for 20 years. He was a student of Gertler, and Gertler was a very, very famous teacher in Europe who was a teacher of many people who are still playing in all the orchestras throughout the world. And I studied with Samuel Kissel, who was a student of Dunas. So I have a little Dunas background there. Mr. Gingold was my mentor, who I observed teaching, and he mentored me for many years because we shared a student, Josh Bell. And then my teaching influences were very definitely Paul Roland. How many of you have seen the Roland videos? Yeah. Well, I want to tell this story because I'm so close to where my whole teaching career started, which was at the North Carolina School of the Arts. This was way back in 1972 when most of you probably were not even born yet, but you're rolling your eyes. You weren't born yet. Yeah, ways to go. So I ended up at the North Carolina School of the Arts playing in the Piedmont Chamber Orchestra. This job was not a full-time job, so my now ex-husband said to me, Mimi, you should go and watch this woman teach children, Nancy Cradle. So probably many of you know Nancy. And she had just finished her doctoral degree with Paul Roland at the University of Illinois. She was hired by the School of the Arts to set up a program for young people. I went to watch her teach with a lot of misgivings because at that time I didn't even like children. And I said, what am I going to do watching these kids play? And I was totally into my own practicing of 5 hours or 6 hours a day and amassing repertoire, etc., etc. So I went to watch Nancy teach, and by the end of the first day I was smitten. And I said, this is incredible. She gave me, in those years, reel-to-reel movies with the Bell and Howell projector, which has sprockets on it. You have to put the movies into the sprockets, and then of course they always fall off, so you get this horrible sound. But anyway, I took these movies home, which weighed probably 50 pounds, and lugged them up 2 flights of stairs, not knowing what I was going to be seeing. I sat there, it was Memorial Day weekend, I sat the whole weekend and I watched these movies over and over and over again, because they answered for me very basic questions. And as a 22 or 21-year-old person, I had already played in the American Symphony and Syracuse Symphony. I was in the chamber orchestra, so I was sort of a professional. But I still had questions. How do you hold the violin? What is the bow doing? What are all these bow strokes? How do you vibrate? How do you shift? I thought this was, these films were really an epiphany for me and started me on a journey of looking at my own playing and then beginning to teach. I could then apply all this information in the clearest, simplest way. The basic principle of Paul Roland is that we look at our physical body and we do everything with the physically most natural motions. Hard to believe that this was something new to think about, because I think as a violinist growing up, I was just playing and practicing, and I didn't think that I had a body to go along with all of this. But as soon as I realized the crucial importance of understanding the physical motions, everything started to fall in place. So we will talk about Paul Roland as we go, and I acknowledge him all of the time because I've incorporated many of his innovative techniques into my own teaching, to the point where I'm not sure what's his and what's mine anymore, which, by the way, for all of us teachers, that's so crucial, because we want to be our own teachers, incorporating things from innumerable sources. Hi. So another influence for me was Suzuki, and all of us are very familiar with Suzuki. What I take from Suzuki is his sequence of repertoire. His sequence of repertoire, I find, is to be the most efficient way to get from nothing to Vivaldi concertos to the next level. But as with all methods, including everything I tell you, nothing is complete unto itself. That we're always supplementing from as many different sources as you can find. With the Suzuki repertoire, I have a list, and I'll show this to you later, repertoire list that from the beginning I'm supplementing with Roland's materials and fiddle tunes and new pieces that have been written for us. But I will show you that in more detail. The umbrella under which I teach is a non-judgmental environment. Now, what does it mean to be non-judgmental? The best way to explain being non-judgmental is first to put ourselves in a very judgmental situation. So, I will put all of you, one at a time, in Carnegie Hall. And it's going to be your debut performance. Your parents are in the audience, your teacher, your possible manager, all your friends. Needless to say, I'm putting you in a very high pressure situation. You're on the stage and you're playing solo Bach, and you make a mistake, a big one. You have a memory slip, you're fumbling around. What are the thoughts that are going through your head? Is anybody here under 18? Okay, we can have freedom of words. How did I get here? How did I get here?
Why didn't I practice more?
Why didn't I practice more? Let's be more personal.
Why did I choose this?
Yeah, what are
Standing
my...
here looking like an idiot.
Right, okay, that's getting better. What are my parents thinking of me? My teacher, what is she thinking or he thinking of me?
Why did it happen?
What, yeah, that's too practical. Usually in this moment, we're thinking, what am I doing here? I've disappointed all of the people that have supported me. And these are totally natural feelings. But these feelings are going to create what in our physical body? Tension. And we know that playing with tension is very difficult. The question is, how do we obtain the non-judgmental environment where we can keep our free physical motions and get up on the stage in all kinds of pressure situations and feel comfortable? We're always going to feel nervous, but at least physically we'll be comfortable and we'll be able to perform better up on the big stage than we would if we were just in a room like this. So to be non-judgmental means that we welcome mistakes. Everything we do is simply information. Nothing is good and nothing is bad. So if I make a mistake, I have to identify that mistake, and then I have to know with many repetitions how I can fix that mistake, so then it will never happen again, because I'm always going to be in this more objective, physically relaxed state. So, for example, I'm going to take my violin, and I'm playing, and I miss a shift. I can identify the mistake, because in the simplest way to think about mistakes, we know mistakes occur where? In between two notes, exactly. All mistakes, everything we do is between two notes. So if I've identified going from here to here, then with just very slow, many repetitions, I will be able to fix whatever happens, knowing it's between two notes. And as an extension of that, my colleague in Bloomington, Myron Bloom, who just passed away, is a great French horn player in the Cleveland Orchestra. His saying was, all music occurs between two notes. So I think I'm going to take that from him and continue his legacy of the two notes and music. So basically, that's where I've come from, very briefly. And as a teacher, we're putting all of our different influences together, always with the observation of the information we're giving is having an effect on our student. And if we have certain expectations that are always reasonable, our students will always be able to obtain our goals, or their goals, because we're giving them the information, specifically giving them the room to make mistakes, and the results are then a given. They will be there for you. So let's go now to just understanding our physical body. So I know that Eric Pritchard, who probably all of you know, has become a certified Alexander teacher, which is wonderful because that's always a really clear way to understand the body. But what we're going to understand is looking at our body and understanding that the backbone goes to the center of our body. And the backbone is made up of what? Vertebrae. Of vertebrae. And we want to envision, if we think of the skeleton in the closet, the vertebrae are not on top of each other, but we leave space between all of the vertebrae. And an extension of the vertebrae is, the backbone is the neck, which is still a collection of vertebrae. So the neck and the backbone, if I make a picture here, have to work together. The neck can't move from the backbone, but the neck is just an extension of the backbone. And then the head is attached to the neck with the jaw, with the joint of the jaw, and that's what's able to move. So we as violinists have to be very aware that we're not using the neck as a joint, but that we're using the jaw, and it has the ability to move up and down and side to side. We also want to keep an awareness of the joints in our body. So what are some of the joints that we know? Okay, shoulder. Now, I actually was giving a workshop in Oregon 2 weeks ago in Portland, and there was somebody in the front row, a very nice man, and he said shoulder, and I said, no, it's not the shoulder, because the shoulder is a bone here, but it's the ball and socket joint. So then we continued to have a discussion for about the rest of the workshop, which was 12 hours, about that. But then he did write me an email, and he finally agreed with me. So the ball and socket joint is crucial for our understanding of how we use our body. Because the ball and socket joint works at how many degrees? 360, right, 360 degrees. Now, let's take a look at how we use it when we play the violin. Because it's hidden under our left, on our left side, and our right side, we don't really look over here. So these are kind of our hidden joints, but they're the most important joints. So the joint, the ball and socket on our right arm, we obviously use it to change our levels. And we have how many levels? More or less 7 levels. And we use the ball and socket joint to get to the frog. So I need to be aware that I'm using this, that this joint can move along with the muscles that are connected with this joint. The pectoral muscles have to be soft. And I'm sure all of you have worked with teenage boys whose muscles are growing. These muscles are like cement. And so we're just always keeping an awareness that this is flexible here, and then I can then move across to the frog. So now, in the left ball and socket joint, I'm going to use the joint to be able to move my left arm from side to side, because as I go up the strings, I need the flexibility of moving slightly back as I go to the E string and under. I need the ball and socket to be able to raise my violin and lower my violin, because I want to be able to have that freedom of motion. And then as I go up the fingerboard, I need to have the flexibility of that ball and socket. So we'll talk more about that when we talk about shifting. Good. Okay, other joints. The elbow, right, the hinge joint here. The hinge joint on both arms. The hinge joint opens and closes our bow for our détaché stroke in the upper half. And actually, I'll add a little addendum to that the hinge joint will work as far as it can go on the up bow until it can't go any further, and then we use the ball and socket. So it's not necessarily in the middle. It depends on how long your arm is. And the hinge joint on the left arm is used for shifting. And if somebody uses an arm vibrato, I don't do an arm vibrato, but I can try to show you. We want to know that the vibrato comes from the hinge joint and not from the ball and socket where you're pumping away like this. Okay, other joints.
Fingers.
Fingers, yeah. So if we look at these amazing fingers in these joints, they have to all be flexible and loose. So when we're looking at our students and we're feeling the hands of our students, if their hands are tight here, well, they're not going to have the ability to move their knuckles or to play in tune, to move their fingers quickly. On the bow, same thing. These knuckles have to be so fluid and soft, which I'm always talking about the no-hold, low-hold, because we're balancing the bow, we're not holding the bow, we're not grabbing the bow. Good. Other joints. Wrist. Okay. Wrist is a very dangerous joint because it can give us a lot of problems. If I exaggerate going to the tip with my wrist coming down, maybe I should stand up here so you can see that. If my wrist is coming down too much, that is going to damage your wrist. And then, of course, if it goes up too much. So in my approach to the bow, I am keeping the wrist as even as possible, up and down. And I'll show you how we can find that. And of course, the wrist on the left side, again, same thing. We never want to play this way. If anything, we want to be more more concave instead of convex. Also for the vibrato, it's helpful. Other joints.
Knees.
Knees, thank you. Knees, okay. So children, as we know, like to stand sway back because they lock their knees. So here is kind of a typical position of a child. Can you come to my teacher? And can you just raise my violin for me? You know, as a teacher, you say, raise that violin. Yeah, and these are things that we see all the time. So we want to make sure that our knees can bend. We want to be aware of our pelvic bowl here, that the bowl has to stay under instead of out to keep, then I can have a lower violin. Now can you raise it? And that's right, and it will be fine. Good. So knees are very important. We need to keep them down.
Ankles even.
Ankles, right. You know, we can stand forward on, I don't know how people do that, but when kids wear high heels, I don't know how they play because it puts them this way. And last night I went to see Isabel Faust, who's a beautiful violinist, and she wore absolutely flat shoes. So I was aware of that because many times you see people come out in heels. So we can be forward, we can be centered, or we can be back. But many times, you know, we see students who they want to get closer to the music, so they have to come this way. So just an awareness of that. Okay, there's one other. The thumb. Thumbs are, I think, in every language in which I teach, I can say relax the thumb, because the thumbs like to grab. The function of the thumb in everyday life is to grab. If we think about it, what is the difference between a human animal and a whale? Which whales are elephants, which are incredibly smart. Probably smarter than us because they'll be around a little longer, but they don't have the ability to manipulate. So in everyday life, the thumb is used to counteract the pressure of the fingers, except when we play the violin on both hands. So the thumb is always loose, and I'll show you how we find a place for the thumb on the bow. And then, of course, the left hand also has to be flexible. Okay, we can keep going down. We got to the toes, yes, toes. So because you're teaching in North Carolina, I'm sure your students are wearing sandals most of the year. So you can see that when they get to a really difficult passage, you can see their toes digging into the ground. And you don't even need to hear what they sound like, because you know it's not going to sound great. Because their tension started with their toes from the ground up. So you would think that the toes would have nothing to do with what's going on here with our hands, but we're such an integrated machine that everything affects what we do. As a teacher, I would like to get a scroll, a Japanese scroll, as we see in the Mikado, the Gilbert and Sullivan opera, that when the rules are stated, you whip out the scroll, and then you see everything here. So I'd like to get a scroll that lists all of the joints, so that when I'm teaching, I'll just do a mental check. Are all of these joints flexible? Yes.
I'm just curious.
Oh,
going
you're
back to the
here.
arms.
Were you here when I mentioned your name?
Yeah.
Okay. There he is. I didn't see him. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be sort of Alexander technique nerd here for a second.
Yeah.
Do you kind of address the sternoclavicular joint and the way that the collarbones can move the shoulder socket in space?
Well, probably I'm not that technical, but yes, I mean, all of this here has to be flexible and movable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just also curious about the pronation and supination of the elbow, not just the
Yeah,
hinge,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the-
I'll get into that when I get to the bow.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be very technical, but you can jump in and give us the technical aspect. Yeah, yeah, because that has to, of course, move. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Good. Good. Well, that's Eric, by the way. So if you need, if you have questions about your body, he's the one to go to, and the violin. Okay, so let's now just go through our basic setup principles. These principles do not only apply to the beginner students that you're going to be working with, but they apply to all students of all ages and all people of whatever level. So we'll first just do a little discussion on what do we use on our violin, because this is always, and I know there's some cellists here, so the cello discussion is what kind of end pen are you going to use, but I'm going to leave that up to the cellist. But on the violin, it's what kind of chin rest do we want to use, and what do we put on the back. So there are so many different ways to think about this, and everybody has to find their own most comfortable, natural position. I teach with no shoulder rest, no Brooklyn bridges. So none of my students have a Brooklyn bridge. And I'll go through the reasons. The reason is that if I put a Brooklyn bridge down, one would think that I'm more relaxed. But in actuality, the bridge locks the position between the jaw and the shoulder. So one can become locked here with the illusion that my hands are really free. And I know people with big necks, there are all kinds of solutions. There are chin rests that we can raise. The other reason that I don't advocate a big Brooklyn bridge is this. So let's say I had a Brooklyn bridge on my violin. It puts my violin here. You see, so I would fill the space in here. And then in order for me to get over, I have to raise in a way, my shoulder, my arm, in an unnatural way. Here. So if I'm going to need to build up the area here, I would build it from the top so that bottom of the instrument stays level with my collarbone, and then my forces can work together here. So it's a long discussion, and probably we could spend the rest of the session going into how we're going to set all of this up. But let me just say, when you're working with children, children do not have necks. You know, I have not met a child up to the age of 11 or 12 that has a neck. That for whatever reason, that comes later. And so please don't use Brooklyn bridges with children, because it puts them in the most awkward of positions. There are different shoulder rests that I use. I've been using now a shelving plastic product here, which I like a lot because it doesn't slip. And I'll go to a fabric store and get sponges and cut them into different sizes just so the instrument does not slide around. Play on airs are fine. And occasionally there are certain wedges that work really well with my students. But mostly what I'm looking for is the comfort and the natural ability to balance the instrument. So that means that much of what we do is a give and take. It's a give and take of balancing the instrument with the left arm and between what I'm going to call the magic X and the thumb here, and understanding the forces that are working when we play. So we have 3 forces. Most people are aware of 2 forces, but the 3rd force is really helpful. So let's talk about the 2 forces first. We have the up force of the instrument, which I can have flexibility with because my ball and socket is workable. And I have the down force of the weight of the arm. So if I'm in a virtual reality, I want to find at which point the pressure of the string against the hair is going to be the most efficient. So if my violin is too low and my arm is too high, I get this sound. If my violin is too high and my bow is too low, I don't have the feeling of the friction. So I'm always searching for this area where my weight of the arm can feel the friction against the up force of the violin. So it's interesting. If you have a student and you're saying, okay, play more, what is their reaction? They're going to do what? They're going to hold the bow and they're going to press down. But in reality, what works is that if they're like this and you say, okay, play more, just raise your violin against the bow and relax the weight of your arm into the string. And we can do that without holding the bow. We don't need to hold the bow at all. And we've got that sound. So I have this ability to move here and move here. So those are the 2 forces that are easier to understand. The 3rd force is resting the instrument against the neck. And the key word is resting, not pressing, but resting. If we want to be comfortable, we can just go against the wall and feel I could stay like this all day because the wall is supporting my body. And the same thing here. If my violin is going to be comfortable, it's just being supported by my neck here. So I don't even need to feel that I have to fill the space here. So my shoulders are down, my scapula are resting in my back. I'm supporting my back muscles with my upper muscles here with my lower back. And I'm able then to just balance my instruments here. Does that make sense? Yes.
What about gravity?
Yeah, well, the gravity is my bow. Can feel the gravity, the weight of my arm the gravity can pull down the weight of my arm. But I can also just raise, it's just so slight to raise and lower the violin. A normal person won't even see it.
When you're first starting a young child, I've noticed that sometimes if they're very cemented,
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, ooh, it hurts my neck, it hurts my neck. So they'll be pushing the violin
Yeah.
into their neck.
Okay.
And they'll complain about it hurting.
So let's now back up, and I'll just give you lots of information, and then we can sort through it as we go through our next time together. So let's go to the setup for the very beginner. So we've looked at the chin rest. Again, there are many different chin rests on the market for kids. And I have a big box in my studio, so I can always look in the box and pull out a chin rest. We want to just be aware that kids are growing all the time, so what might be comfortable today, in 2 weeks, is not going to be comfortable. So I'm always aware of that, and I'm switching things out and trying to find the best solution. Just if you want to know my favorite chin rest for adults, I like the Morowitz, Morawetz. Do you have a Morowitz?
I have one on my teaching violin.
Okay, a Morowitz. And then another really comfortable one, especially for people with longer necks, is the Berber, and that's in Europe they use that a lot. It's the one that's shaped like an ear. It's called the Orai. Yeah, that's a Morowitz. It could be a Vermeer. I think this is a Vermeer. Yeah, so Vermeer is a little bit like the Morowitz, but it has a higher cuff here.
How do you spell that one?
Vermeer, like the I don't know why they named it after the artist. Okay, and then I have a Guarneri model chin rest here, but it's made by Bolgarov and Clementi. Have any of you heard of that one? It's really expensive. I don't know why it's so expensive, but it's like when you find something you like, you just keep it. So you can start with those. There was another one for kids that I've used a lot, but when
Is it Whitner?
No, yeah, the Whitners are okay. Yeah. Anyway, that gives you a choice.
Could you talk a little bit about children who seem to prefer holding the violin right in the center, and chin rest for the center of the instrument?
Well, I think if somebody has really short arms, it could be fine, and I'll show you as we go through the setup now. Okay, so then we're going to, and I'm going to open my website because then you can see things more clearly. Let's see, I think you might have to, oh, here it is. Okay, so we're just going to get the student ready here. So basically, this website I started in 2002, and with just the very beginning stages of how you do things, and then it developed into how do you fix things that are not correct, how do you rehabilitate, called Establishing a Healthy Foundation, because rehabilitation does not sound quite as warm and fuzzy. And then in the last year, I have been putting on my YouTube channel a lot of streaming lessons with a beginner, Sadie. It's called Sadie the Beginner. She's not really a beginner. She's almost in book 3 now. And I started a sequence with Alice, who is 9 and been playing the violin for 2 years, but she's playing Vivaldi G minor concerto. So she's very quick, so I wanted to show what we can do with a student who's quick, because we do the same things with a quick student that we do with a slow student, but the quick student gets it faster. We don't really want to miss any steps. So, how do we set up the violin? So, first thing we do, we want to be aware of the body. I always say the moon is pulling us up and gravity is pulling us down. So that's what is lengthening our backbone. We make a V with our feet. We take a step, which we all, I'm sure, do. I know that the Suzuki people were taking a step forward with the left foot, but I take a step to the side because I want to feel that the body can go from left to right, not from forward to backwards. And then we give our students a magic X. So can you see that magic X there? Okay. So maybe just give yourselves a magic X just so you know where it is. It's on the base of the knuckle of the first finger.
Just above the bone or on?
Yeah, well, it's on the line. Yeah, so it would be kind of above the bone. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Now, this magic X, would you like a magic X? This magic X is, you have one, okay, it would be on this side.
Oh, you're talking about, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So on the left hand. So this magic X comes, is a Paul Roland innovation. And we're going to use it often. So the magic X, we have the violin in rest position, take our step. We're going to put our hand over our high dot, and I'm going to just give myself a high dot very briefly. And the high dot is the center of our fingerboard, of our string. So these are the initial setup things that are going to impact everything that we do. So do you see this high dot here, or line? It is where our middle harmonic lies. And so I keep my hand over the high dot, and if I am keeping my hand in this position here, instead of this position, again, this position is not great because, first of all, when we slide it down, it's not going to be our position we're going to use when we play. And when I tell the kids when they get their Strad, they don't want to put their fingers onto that gorgeous varnish. So we'll just keep our hand over our high dot, and then we do our Statue of Liberty. And we'll count first to 10, then 11, 14, 20. We do this many times. This is the first lesson, by the way. And the benefit of this is that I am angling my instrument to be comfortable then on my collarbone, and I'm strengthening my left arm. So I rarely see kids in my program playing with their arms against the side, because they have somewhat strengthened their arms here. So many Statue of Liberties. And then we rest the violin on the collarbone. See, so I would like to hear, that the instrument is resting. It was interesting last night with Isabel Faust. Did any of you hear that concert? No? She did this at the beginning, before she played. It's like she found her collarbone and put her violin in that collarbone, and then she didn't move it for the rest of the piece that she was playing. I thought, that's exactly right. And so we do our statute alert, we find the place for the violin. Now, to answer your question about where does the violin go? Does it go here? Does it go here? Does it go here? So as we look at our students as they're growing, we want to be able to take the violin coming straight from our shoulders, because we don't want to distort anything here. And we're going to rest the instrument here, and we're going to find where the bow can comfortably be at the tip. So if I place my violin here, you see, then I can't reach the tip. If I place my violin here, then I can't, I'm squished. I can't get to the frog. So the instrument there's a margin of error, and you want to find the place where the bow is going to be comfortable. Making sure that with kids that we don't have bows that are too long. Better that the bow is too short. When I switch violin sizes for kids, I will have them most likely keep their old bow with the new violin size, and then change out the bow when they've grown. Yes.
Can I ask about the combination of both this angle here and the placement here for what kind of chin rest you use?
Okay, yeah, so it goes on the collarbone here. So if I were smaller, I would maybe have it in the middle. It would still go on the collarbone here. But you see, I can pivot. I can pivot
Right.
the instrument.
Right, I was talking about choosing a chin rest, I guess, whether it's over the center, over the tail piece or to the side, because that can affect how easy it is.
Right, that's right. So you just want to experiment around. So if this kind of chin rest you can see is working well here, but if it's not working well, then I would experiment with the one over to the side. Yeah. Yeah, and it might work for a while, but not forever. And then I know there's some chin rests that go over the side that you have some wiggle room here. Like the Berber chin rest, it gives you can either put your violin here, 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 and it's comfortable in all of those places. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then we've established a comfortable position for the violin here. We have the angle here, and then we do our tapping here. So I'm tapping on the left side of the instrument. So I can tap in the twinkle variation rhythms, and I use codisyllables. So tiri, tiri, ti, 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 tiri, ti, tiri, 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 tiri. And what is this doing? In the very first lesson, we're releasing the vibrato impulse. So in the very first lesson, I'm shifting on my magic X. I'm sliding up and down. I'm establishing a position here, feeling my collarbone with my head straight ahead. We don't want to twist the head. Kids like to twist the head because we're usually right eye dominant. So we like to look out of the right eye here, but we have to get them used to being left eye. And I release my vibrato. And then we're learning our very first piece, which is going to be plucking over the high dot, because over the high dot establishes our left hand position. So you see right from the very first lesson, I have a perfect position here. And we're going to learn a little tune, and then we're going to stamp our foot in the rest, because we're acting in the rest. And that simply is the accompaniment to hot cross buns. Yeah. And if you're teaching in the public school, you can use this. There are dozens and hundreds of tunes that use 151. And you can just spend as much time as you need to do this. Now, I want to can somebody be a volunteer and take out their violin? Because I want to show you something else we can do with this. Okay.
Can you also say what things are applicable for cellists? I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
this is applicable.
Yeah,
for
all of
cellists.
this for cello. Not except, you don't do the magic X, of course, but sliding up and down on the fingerboard right away. There's a chapter in string pedagogy that my cellist at the String Academy put together. Yes, the opposite, isn't it? Okay, so here is a chapter on cello here. Oh, I can't read this. Oh, yeah, here it is. Yeah. So that she's using the same principles, but adapting it to cello. Yeah. Okay, we don't need your bow yet, so maybe, well, you can use that. Now everybody's going to be so self-conscious. Okay, so here we go. So if you could just, put your feet together, maybe turn towards me a little bit. Yeah, make a V, take a step, don't drop off the side here. And do your sliding on your magic X. Good, so the magic X is here, and we just feel that we're going to slide up and down, bounce off the side. So we keep the hand over the high dot, and we do your Statue of Liberty. Good, and then, that's right, and then you don't want to be over too far. You see, so you're going to you have to have the flexibility in that ball and socket joint to move. And then we rest the violin on your collarbone. That's right. Good. Okay, now we're going to, with the little finger over the high dot, we're going to play A, E. Okay, now this is the thing that is really useful. I'm going to be, you just get to hold my wrist here. Okay, like a bow. That's right, but very loosely. And here we go. And we're going A, E, rest. A, E, rest. You see, so that right from the start, we're getting both arms moving. That's good. That's good. So that is not in this website because it's something relatively new.
Okay.
That's good. Okay, great. Okay. So then we move along. Yes.
Question, how about, are you already starting to incorporate some movement in that left shoulder?
Well, yes, because if we're doing our tapping and then I'm coming back here,
Okay.
tapping, yeah, just especially with little kids, I'm just moving them all the time. Yeah. And then we'll expand AEA to G, E, G, etc., and then D, and then AEA, which, yes, then we'll do G, E, G, rest. So yes, that means that we have to be flexible here.
And you're stomping with your
With my right foot.
right foot, okay.
But I usually do my left so that if the student is facing me,
Oh,
yeah, because I just have to explain the crossover.
Have you ever, when I'm going to recital and we're doing that thing, a metronome?
You mean, I don't use a metronome for these little kids. I use a metronome starting actually much later, around Vivaldi A minor concerto when I add a 3-octave scale. So I want them to get their own internal sense of pulse, because everybody has a sense of pulse. So in the course of learning this, at least when they're in the lesson, I do everything in a very rhythmical way. Yeah, and I am very fortunate that I have pianists at all my group classes. And when I need a pianist, we can find somebody to come in and play. But usually we as teachers can play this rudimentary music. Okay, so that's our left hand. So far, let's go to our bow. And I will take you to the bow. And for the bow, I make my own little pinky houses. I know there are a bunch of these plastic things on the market, but I really have not found any that I like because usually they're put in a place that is not correct. I saw a few yesterday that are, they force the bow position to be not where it should be. So I will just play you this video and you can then play it at home for yourself and you can figure out how to make it. Now we've come to the portion of teaching the violin to children where we're going to learn how to make a little finger house. What we need some good tape that has some thickness to it and a pair of scissors. The first thing that we do is we're going to cut a piece of tape a couple of inches long, and we're then going to fold it over so the sticky sides are touching each other. But we're going to leave half of it still available. And it will be, if we take a look at this piece of tape, you'll be able to see that this is the part of the tape that is available because this is going to form the floor of our little pinky house. We then take the tape and we create a little circle with the sticky side staying on the outside, and then we're going to create the floor with that part of the tape that's still sticky. Then you see we have our little house. We're going to take our bow and place the little house on the bow where the little finger will be residing. And that tends to be above the button of the bow or above, in my case, on my bow, the fleur-de-lis. And in order for the house to stay where we want it to stay, we need to cut another piece of tape. We're going to cut this piece into two pieces, just like this. And we're then going to secure our house with these two pieces. And I put part of that tape inside the house and then secure the tape on the frog. And I'm going to do the same thing with this other piece here. And let's see if this is going to work for my little finger. And we check it out. And yes, my little finger seems very comfortable and it's very happy in its new home. So it takes a little practice to make these things, but what you really want to be aware of is that you put the little pinky house in the right place. You know, you don't want it to be over too far to the right of the bow here, and usually it's going to be over the dot or whatever on the bow there. Let's see if I can get this one to work. So for me, this is the best place. So you don't want to push the little finger too far over to the right side here. Good. Okay, so then with the bow.
Can I ask you a question about
Yes.
the pinky house? Is there thought to it being tall rather than just like a little corn pad?
You know, I know people use corn pads and those are probably okay. I don't think it should be really tall because you don't want it to be restricting. So, but maybe the corn pad is not tall enough. Yep. Yeah.
Is it sticky?
And
Is it the floor? That's what I couldn't understand.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Sticky
let's see.
Still, like the
Yeah,
floor.
yeah.
I've watched that before and
Yeah.
I don't remember if I was supposed to cover
No, it was the other way. Yeah,
Oh.
I think you do the other way.
I'll watch it again.
Okay. No, see, you want to have the sticky side on the outside. So then you can do this and it can be like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It goes back to a little bit, not about actually vocal. How long typically, I know it depends on how quick students get to spend just on violin before you actually get to the bow?
Well, in general, and again, it depends on how much the child is practicing at home. In my program in Bloomington, it's mandatory for the parent to come to the lesson, to take notes, to sit very quietly in the chair, and to practice with their child every day at home. So practicing isn't that you have to practice half an hour at first. Practicing is just a matter of repetition. So if they do 5 minutes every day of Statue of Liberty 10 times, plucking A, E, G, D, G, or D, A, D, 10, 20 times, that might take 5 minutes. So I would say average, we're getting to the bow by week 3. Unless it's a really little child, I generally don't take 4-year-olds, but occasionally there's one, but 5-year-olds are going to be fine.
Do you require 7 days a week, or do you allow them to maybe take a day?
You know, I say I say every day if they take a day off, it's fine. Yeah. But it really, I mean, all of us know that the results of what we get is directly proportionate to the investment of time that the student makes. And also, we know as teachers that if we're working with a student that doesn't practice, you're looking at the clock every 3 minutes and wondering when the half hour is going to be up. And then also the motivation for these kids to practice is that they're going to sound better faster. You know, that's hopefully the motivation. So yeah, I mean, they're all different things in between. Yeah, it's not so simple. Yeah. And in the beginning, it really is up, at least in how I'm teaching, up to the parent to say, okay, every day we're just going to go and do what Mimi says, and they have a practice book so they can write down how many times they've done whatever, and they'll get a sticker at the end of the week. Yeah. Yes.
This is back to Pinky Houses, but when do you graduate a Pinky House?
Well, it depends.
What do you look for?
Yeah, sometimes they fall off, and then if they fall off and it looks okay, then I'll keep it off, and if it doesn't look okay, I'll put it back on. Yeah, it could be there for quite a while. I have no problem with props.
So do you always start with the Pinky House? Do you ever
Yes.
just see what it looks like?
No,
I always.
Yeah.
I was just passing.
Oh, okay. Oh, good, you have a rotating Pinky House. Okay, so then let's get to the bow. So first thing, maybe take a look at, find a partner who's sitting next to you, and take a pen or a pencil. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I do. I'm a good partner. I have a 10. I'm good for
Okay, so again, we approach the bow with the same natural feeling that we approach everything else. So everybody has a perfect bow position, and I don't call it a bow grip because that implies grip. So if we just raise our right arm and you just look at your arm, good, your hand, how it's lying there. And then you can even let the wrist kind of sag, good, but the arm should be loose. Good, and then you just take the pencil and put it underneath and push push it up. That's right, until you have a flat wrist. And then the little finger goes on top, and the thumb goes across from the longest finger. And there we have it. All these perfect bow positions. It's so easy. So the key, the reason why it works is because everything is loose. You know, if it's loose, it works. And then you tap your first finger on the bow. You tap your 2 middle fingers together and the little finger. And then you can turn it around this way. That's right. So I encourage the kids to practice this in school when they're bored. And just finding their most natural position here. Good. Good. You know, Phyllis Young had a great idea for the cellists. Are anybody familiar with Phyllis Young? She was a cello professor in Austin, Texas, and has a lot of wonderful materials and innovative things. She would take a pine cone. She would just bring in a pine cone from outside, and the child would then just put their hand on the pine cone in this position here, and it would work because who wants to press on the pine cone? Okay, so then I need a volunteer again. Okay, good. And so we'll take the bow. Oh, you know what I forgot to bring? A toilet paper roll but I'll just use this. So if you collect toilet paper rolls, that's the best thing. And you just put the bow in the toilet paper roll, and then you'll hold this. That's right, maybe the other way. I think that's better. Yeah, good. And then we do the same thing. So we just drop the arm. Wait, this arm gets to drop. Good. Okay. And then we just go up. Good. And then you just rest the fingers on the bow here. Good. And the little finger in the house. Good. And then the thumb. I teach the thumb underneath the frog in the first lesson. I keep the thumb under the frog until "O Come Little Children" in the Suzuki repertoire. And that's because I start the kids in the upper half of the bow where we're using the forearm. For cellists, so you're going to be lower half of the bow. But for us violinists, we're upper half of the bow. At "O Come Little Children," I expand the bow to using the whole bow. And so that's when I'll change this bow position. It's interesting. Everything becomes a habit after you do it once. So you don't want to have things take too long to make the changes that are important. Okay, so then we're going to be aware of the thumb, and we don't need to really bend the thumb. I think that it's a misunderstanding that the thumb has to be bent so much. The thumb has to be flexible, and the thumb is never in the same place at any given time as we go from the frog to the tip. So when we initially do this bow position with our kids, you don't need the thumb to be bent so much. Good. Okay, so then I would put a middle on the bow. I'm just going to give myself a middle here. Good. And I'm going to just, as a teacher, we're going to play teary, teary, tee, tee. Teary, teary, tee, tee. So we're using the upper half of the bow. And we are using the bow strokes, détaché and martelé. So, let's see. Can I borrow my bow? Yeah. So, right from the start, we're defining our bow strokes. So, we're after the clarity of sound. And maybe could we have you come back again? Great. And then after we've done a lot of this on our shoulder or in the toilet paper roll, do you want my violin or do you want to take your violin? Okay, we're going to add this to So then we'll do our Statue of Liberty. Good, and we'll just keep our hand, we don't want to put our thumb here, but we can just put our thumb here. Good, and with our hand over the high dot. Good, Statue of Liberty. And as you can see, I'm the teacher. I'm doing all the work. You're going to look straight ahead with your head.
Am I looking straight ahead? No.
Yeah, just look into my eyeballs.
Okay.
That's right, and I'm going to know how to do all the work. It's so interesting because with our kids, we have to ask them to relinquish all control because we're going to be their controlling force, at least initially, which is hard because nobody wants to give up their thing. Okay, so we'll rest the violin on your collarbone. Good, and we'll just rest the jaw in the chin rest, which I call the jaw rest. Good, and we'll keep our hand lightly over our high dot. Good. And probably you want to keep your head. That's right. That's right. That's it. Good. Do you usually use a sponge or anything?
I usually use a
Brooklyn Bridge? Oh, okay.
I'm
Okay.
a bass player. So.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
great. Oh, even better. Okay, good. So now watch how we do this. I'm going to do all the work for her. So I put my thumb, and we'll just for now let your thumb go here. I put my thumb on the left side of the frog, and let's just turn around a little bit. Maybe let's tune you up first.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll put our hand over the high dot. That's it. And Statue of Liberty. Good. And rest the violin on your collarbone. That's good. 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 We could get you a sponge so you'll be more comfortable.
It actually feels not bad.
Okay, okay. So, and then the fingers, I'm always manipulating the fingers. Now, this is what, the two things I'm going to show you that will be really helpful for those that are working with kids on a private basis, is that I'm going to do all the work now. Good, I'm going to tighten her bow too. Okay. Teary, teary, tee, tee. Good, so we hear I'm making the sound. So it can be clear, and we'll do our silent string crossings right away for the first as we put our bow down. Good, and then we play to the E string. Tee, tee, good, and then she'll go home and practice this, and the mom, we can show the mom how to do this, but we can also just have the child. It's not going to be very good for a couple of weeks, but it's on the right track. Good. Okay, then, that's good, thank you, have a seat. Then, we're going to take a look at putting fingers down. I'm missing some steps here, but you should just go to the website and just follow it step by step, and that will get you caught up to here. Also, if you watch, I'll show you this later on Sadie's lessons, but okay, so then we've established our and the E string. Now it's time to put fingers down. So again, left hand. Maybe I'll stand here so you can see. We're doing our sliding on our magic X a lot. I do my Statue of Liberty. The violin is comfortable. And I've done a lot of plucking with my left hand. And remember the magic X. To put fingers down, I'm just going to slide back down on the magic X, and I have a perfect position. So all we do is slide down, perfect position.
Do you always do plucking with the fourth finger, or do you try third?
Yeah, what I've been doing, I'll do it with all fingers. Yesterday in the group, we plucked with 4, and then we did 3, and then we did 2, and then we did 1, and then we did 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3. Yeah, yeah, you can mix and match. Yeah. So left hand position. Let me go back to here, and we're going to take a look at things that can be wrong with the left hand.
everyone in my students.
Okay. Okay, so I want you to keep in mind the magic X. All of this has to be predicated on the fact that the left hand is loose. And we have 2 principles that we're going to follow through the rest of our life. One is finger before the bow, and 2, relax the finger after it plays. So we can talk to our students, relax, relax. You know, and they don't know what to do. They're trying, but we have to give them specific information. So we will start with our hand over the high dot, and then I'm going to slide back on my first finger, and I'm going to put first finger down, second, and third. Personally, I give 2 lines. I give a first finger line and a third finger line, because we know the second finger is going to go next to the third finger. I saw there, I know that there is this graph that we see on the fingerboard with like all the half steps. I think it's so confusing. I saw a few yesterday, and I would just ask you maybe not to use it, because the kids did not play any, they played even more out of tune than if they just had 1 or 2 lines, or 3 lines max for high second finger. So now, let's take a look at what can go wrong. So take a look at this. My magic X is too high, right. So now the opposite. Magic X too low. Okay, now here's the hard one. So this is, my magic X is in the right place. We see this all the time, don't we? Okay, what's the problem with this one? No, I'm pronated.
The wrist is what we got.
The wrist is out. Okay, I'm going to stay in the same place here. I'm going to put the wrist in.
You're gripping?
Okay, I'm not gripping.
Fingers are to curl.
And I'm rotated in that.
I mean, this way.
The hand, thank you. The hand is not balanced, meaning what?
Has to be balanced with first finger and fourth finger.
Yeah, let's be even, go a step further. We want to balance back from the fourth finger. So if, you can't do this with a beginner because they don't know this, but with kids who are a little more advanced, you want them to play their high dot here, their harmonic, and you want them to play the harmonic on fourth finger. So I play, and now I slide back, and 4. And now I gotta get rid of this pinky house. I have outgrown it. Do you see how that works? So we always want to extend back from the fourth finger. And then I will have my position. Now, what I just mentioned before, we want to keep an awareness of relaxing the fingers after they play. I do not teach keeping the fingers in their spots, because personally, I can't do that since I have small hands. So I have to relax the finger, and the hand finds its own most natural shape. And a hand that is relaxed will strike faster than a hand that is tight. So occasionally we'll run across a student that has these incredibly long fingers. I have a former student, William Harvey, who set up an incredible foundation called Cultures in Harmony, and he spent 5 years in Afghanistan making a violin class there. Now he's concertmaster of the National Symphony in Mexico City. But I only mentioned him because he's perfect like this, but he's built that way. So the best way to find the balance of the hand and then come back up. And when we come back up, I call these codes that we're going to find the codes with whole steps and half steps. And we'll leave the fingers down after they play. So that took care of this wrist problem. Okay, there's one other problem, well two, but one we rarely see, and that one is a crooked wrist, right? Now, that comes two things we can look for. I'm just giving you the symptoms of what we see all the time, and all of the things we're talking about now are the cures. So the cure for this one is to change the level of our elbow from the ball and socket as we go up the strings. And the other cure is, can I see, do you have oh no, anybody have a felt pen? I didn't bring my felt pen. Okay, it doesn't matter. Just take a look at your first finger on your left hand. And generally we think the first finger should go in the middle. It should contact the string in the middle. But what we want is, in many cases, is to make contact with the string on the left side. So here, if you can see, I know I'm a little far away, but if I play this way, you see I'm contacting my finger on the right side. But what I want to do is contact on the left side. And then that sets up my left hand and allows me to vibrate because I have freedom of motion here.
Do you feel like you support the violin at all with the left hand?
Yeah, between my magic X and thumb.
Okay,
You
so do you, when you're shifting, I know we'll talk about this more.
Yeah,
when
I'm
we
going to
talk
get
about
to shifting
Okay.
in 1 minute. Yeah.
So you feel like even without a shoulder rest, you can change the balance of how you
Yeah,
support the
easily.
violin to make
Yeah.
it free? Okay.
Yeah, we're getting there. Okay, so that is the setup of the placement of the left hand. So with our kids, the first piece we do them is seesaw. First finger. And then all kind of see a little monkey. So these are preparations for Twinkle, and then we get to Twinkle. Just one thing with Twinkle. As we're coming down, I actually rest the bow on the A string and then finger before the bow plays 1, 2, and 3. I will spend weeks just placing 1, 2, and 3, just very slowly, at blocking the fingers. And then by the time we get to the theme, we can put all 3 fingers down.
So you move the bow to the A string and then 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I do. You know why I do that? I mean, usually finger
Actually,
before
do the opposite.
finger before bow, but I just want to get the bow over. But then I realize that I still am placing the finger before the bow is playing.
I noticed that as you were putting the finger down, say when you're doing the monkey song, Or make sure moving your hand back and forth when you play the open string, you want the kids to move their hand back up?
Well, in Seesaw, the first piece, I start over the high back, and then we slide back on the magic X. But in Twinkle, we could start here. I think I'm just kind of moving all the time.
So you do the mochi song on that little mochi song on the A string first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can you do the seesaw?
Yeah, it's on the website.
Oh, it
too.
is,
Yeah,
okay.
everything's on the website.
Where it says first pieces, those
Yeah.
are all in twinkles.
Let's see, where is it here? First pieces, yeah. Well, let's see, it's gonna be here.
Oh, the bow.
Yeah. So here's the violin and bow together, ADA. And I have to actually get my web cursor to reverse this. It's a little not clear there. Okay, so that takes us through the very beginning stages. There are a bunch of holes in here, but it gives you a little insight. And Erica really wanted me to go into shifting, so I will try to take you through the quick version of shifting. So what you can do if you see, look at the website. I have a bow stroke link which will describe how to teach the bow strokes. A scale link which gives you the sequence of how I teach scales from Tiri, Tiri, Titi, Twinkle, A major through 4-octave scales. The shifting link, which we'll go through now, and the vibrato link, all the preliminary vibrato exercises and more advanced vibrato exercises. Okay, so if we go to shifting, here, okay. Shifting I describe as being the transportation system of the fingerboard. So I like to make an analogy to transportation systems in our society. So what are some systems that we know? Trains, they have the tracks, good. Airplanes, we have air routes.
Electric trolleys.
Yeah, electric trolleys, good. That we really can see like a string. Good. Cars go on roads. Boats, river canals, river, sea routes, cyber routes, etc., etc. So, what is the purpose of a transportation system?
He said the same thing, get to one place to another.
Exactly. Getting from one place to, that's it. Getting from one place to another. And that's why all big cities were established on rivers, because they could get from one place to another with the rivers, if we look back 10,000 years, etc. So what is the difference on our fingerboard of our transportation system?
Straight line?
Huh?
Straight line?
A straight line, good.
Similar or different?
What?
You often have to make a connection.
Yeah, we're always what? We're getting from one note to another note. We're making a connection, exactly. But what's the difference of, let's say, my flying today from here to Indianapolis on an air route, than my going from
Sliding.
Take off.
I don't have to take off, that's true.
Yeah, I say this another way, but sometimes you maybe start with one suitcase and end with another, because you start with one finger and you make
Yeah,
another.
good, that's good. And remember, we're non-judgmental, so there are no wrong answers.
To slide with the same finger that you finished in first position.
No,
you
that's
slide to
too
the third one.
technical. We're not there yet.
Okay.
We haven't gotten there. It's just smaller.
Okay.
Yeah. The distance is just smaller, but we can we know that every thing that we do can be divided infinitively into smaller and smaller and smaller segments.
Street intersection.
The what?
Street intersection.
Yeah. So that so basically, I explain the transportation systems because I want the student to understand that there is a way to get from one place to another. You know, when you fly, you get in an airplane to get there. When I'm going from B to F sharp, I have to know how to get there. And I think so many people are just jumping. I mean, I know I was a jumper. You know, I was playing Tchaikovsky concerto. I don't have a clue how I got from one note to the next. But now I know a little bit better. Okay, so there are a bunch of preliminary shifting exercises that we do with our kids. And these are so important to our making shifting later working. So let's just go through some of those first. So we have the long silent shifts. So maybe I'll just play you a little bit of this video just so you see how all of this works here. These are shifts, silent shifts that we're going to do without the bow on one finger. So let me show you how we're going to do these. We're going to slide up on one first finger all the way up, touch our nose, and slide back down. Now, what I want you to be aware of is as we slide up, the elbow gradually comes under. We touch our nose, boop, and then we slide down, and the elbow gradually comes back. Also, the angle of the wrist stays in one plane here. So we're going to slide up, very lightly, slide up, all the way, touch your nose, boop, and slide down. That's right. And second finger, good, slide up, touch your nose, boop. And then as we slide down, good, we get the elbow swings back to its original position. That's right, which allows our wrist then to find its most natural in position. Good, and third finger, good, slide up, boop, and slide, get your thumb back, thumb against the side, and we slide down, fourth finger, good, keep your thumb, good, and slide up, boop, slide back down on your thumb, on the fingerboard, on the side of the fingerboard, and down. That's very good. Good. Okay, so these are things that we can do already with book 2 kids, book 3 kids. Just, again, it's just this freedom of motion here, which is extremely useful. Okay, let's see. Okay, how do I get out of this? Okay. And then other exercises. Matching notes and matching harmonics. So this is my favorite one, where we find our harmonic and then we slide up and match it and we slide down. So, and then understanding the harmonics on our string are extremely helpful for our understanding our geography. So the harmonic that I just played, we have 3 harmonics. Let me get rid of this middle here so what will speak better. I have 3 harmonics here, here, and here. And that divides the string length into how many pieces? Quarters. Yes, quarters, exactly. And then under 4th finger, I have 2 harmonics. It divides the string into 3s, right. And then under 2nd finger, I have 4 harmonics. It divides the string into 5s. And bass players use their harmonics all the time. Good, so then, you know, if you're playing a piece like, you know, Vinieski, then it becomes much easier. How are you finding the harmonic? Well, I know it divides the string into 5. Or, all of these harmonics here, we know with overtoss, we know where the harmonics are geographically. And interestingly, we're getting a sense of geography with our very first lesson with the high dot. Already I understand the division of the string into 2 pieces. Yes.
Aren't they doing shifting? Technically, they're shifting when they're going from high dot to first in the seesaw song?
Yes,
Just sliding back.
exactly. We're starting that motion right away. I think I'm such a shifting advocate at the early stages because I remember when I was a child, and I was a late starter. I was 8 when I started, but I don't think I got out of first position for years. And my teachers didn't know. I didn't know there was anything on the other side up on the fingerboard there. So all of these shifting things and this exercise here, where we're matching the harmonics, are just freedom of motion again.
I have one more question about the harmonics. The quality of instrument, does it really matter what quality of instrument to get those harmonics, or can you get those with even the cheapest of the
Yeah, it
violin?
should, if the strings are not too ancient.
Okay.
Yeah, and mostly the harmonics are going to be the bow. See, it's going to be, the bow has to be fluid.
So if we're having trouble getting the harmonics out, we just need to change the strings?
No, look at the bow
Oh,
first.
look at the bow, okay.
Yeah, and if there's rosin on it. Okay, another exercise. We'll play match, second finger, and first finger. You can do that on every string. Another favorite that I like is, and we pluck, 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 pluck. So we keep going all the way up to the F major scale, etc. So that you don't even need to know what position you're in.
As a principal, I try and teach my students to not unviolin,
Uh-huh.
where they actually lose contact with the string and then shift and then land, because
Yeah.
I try and tell them that's like a blind man finding his way.
Yeah,
He has
exactly.
to measure it. So as a principal, do you agree with that? Do you
Yes.
ever have your students actually remove fingers from
No.
strings? Okay.
No, I mean, we find the new note from the old note. And another general rule, and all rules that I'm telling you are meant to be broken at some point or other, but we always leave the finger down if we're returning to it within the same position. Yeah. Yeah. So if I'm going from B to A, I don't want to take the fingers off. I want to keep one down until I find, even if it's just briefly. Okay, moving ahead with shifting. Are there other preliminary exercises? We can pluck here and pluck here, pluck here. Just again, so we're moving around. Now, when we're going now to the more specifics of how we're going to shift, I'm going to go back up here. And again, this is not for children per se. We want to divide shifting into 2 categories. So if you're a lay person, you're not a violinist or string player, how would you classify shifts?
Same finger, different finger?
That's too technical. I don't know what you're talking about.
I could say slurpy and not slurpy.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
The shifts that, silent shifts, is that what you mean? Like
Something like that.
silent shifts and expressive shifts. So we have really two categories of shifts, the silent ones and the audible expressive ones. Now, the definition of these shifts, I think it's up on the board here, and I'll explain it to you. This definition does not come from me, but it comes from Janusz Starker, whose classes I often watched when I first arrived in Bloomington. So a silent shift is a shift where we shift on the old beat, we arrive on the new note on the new beat. So if I'm going to shift from here to here, I'm going to shift on the old bow, which is the old beat, 1, 2. 1, 2, right? If I'm shifting in a slur, I'm still going to time the shift on the old beat. 1, 2. 1, 2. Now, if I'm shifting from one finger to a different finger, I'm going to shift on the old finger to the new position. So if I'm going from B to F, I'm going to practice a shift on the old finger. In a bow change, I'm shifting on the old bow, arriving on the new note, on the new beat, on the new bow. If I'm shifting from a higher finger to a lower finger, I'm still practicing the shift on the old finger to the new position. So the expressive shifts are shifts where we shift however much you want on the new beat. So and on the new finger. So if I'm playing B, I'm going to shift in a bow change on the up bow, on the new beat, and on 3. If I'm shifting, if it's a really long shift, I could do some of this shift on the old finger. But again, for the expressive shifts, it's what you want to say in those shifts. So what we really want to be concerned about are the silent shifts. Those are the ones we're working on the most. So I use, I want to tell you one more thing, which is, I think, really interesting. All shifts are slow because the speed of our bow in general is always slow. So if I'm playing, if this is kind of a normal note, a normal sound, now that's a slow bow, right? So I would shift, I'm shifting the speed of the bow. Now, if I want to go faster, if I need a faster note, I'll use half that amount of bow. But I didn't change the speed of the bow. If I want to go faster, I didn't change the speed of the bow. I'm still a slow bow. Still a slow bow. That's why when you watch great violinists play, you don't see them jumping around being frantic. They're just moseying along like this. So that's an interesting concept to think about. I mean, there are so many different things. Sometimes we might have to release the bow or be expressive with the bow, but in general. So to this end,
Can you, before you move on, can you talk about the relationship of the Magic X, like in 3rd position as opposed to 7th position and the knuckles? Because that's kind of an external thing that's helpful.
Yes, okay. So the balance of my left hand is, as we talked about in 1st position, is between the thumb and the Magic X. Now, as I go up the positions, I am keeping the thumb and the Magic X together until I get past 5th position. Now, for violas, it's going to be a little sooner if the bouts are bigger. But I'm going, then I'm coming around. So I always have 2 points of contact. I have the thumb and the X. Now here, I have 2 points of contact. I have the heel of my hand. And then as I come around, I still have my thumb is a hook. I call my thumb a hook here. So I can always feel, see, and that gives me freedom of motion. So I don't need I don't need to feel that I'm like this. I know somebody asked that question. It's, so as I'm shifting, I mean, you can see as I shift, you see, I don't think I raised my shoulders. Yeah, but I'm really balancing the instrument here.
So you're transferring that balance between hand and...
Yeah, and it's resting on my collarbone. See, it's this 3rd force that is so helpful. Now, I can think of when I shift up, I'm shifting down the fingerboard, and when I'm shifting down, I'm shifting down the fingerboard too. Yeah, it's just a different way. I mean, you have to look at Milstein. You know, he held his violin like this. You know, there was even he had it on his collarbone, but there was not any support on his shoulder at all. And also, the Brooklyn Bridge is a relatively recent invention. I think in the 1960s, maybe, it came out. And I have to tell you, I went through everything. I tried everything. I had coons and sponges and socks and nothing, and I don't know. Now, you know, I just pick it up and it's just there. Because, and I know why I was trying all those things, because I had a lot of tension in my body. Yes.
Sorry, when you have the student shift up and tap their nose, they actually let their thumb on the front.
Yeah, exactly. They have to bring their thumb on the fingerboard.
But that's not for playing in high positions, right?
No.
You always want to leave your thumb
Yeah,
hooked
if
around.
we can. There's some people that are so small that when they get up high like this, they have to come around a little bit keeping their thumb on the fingerboard here.
And now, could you talk about students who are afraid of dropping their violin when they're shifting back down from those high positions and start grabbing, and then they miss the shift going down?
Well, I would say that what I would do, I would just hold their instrument for them, you know, and then let them practice that.
Okay.
They can also go against the wall like this and, you know, practice, you know, there. Yeah, that's good. Just, you know, they could balance it against the wall.
How much is the head involved when you're shifting?
A little bit, you know, a little bit. But I can shift without the head too.
Does shift down.
But coming down, yeah, I need to balance. I need a little bit of weight at the head.
There's one problem that is hard with the intermediate student is when taking a long bow, they take the bow off at either end.
Well, you know, if we go a little bit on a side trip here, my whole basis is, as if you look at the rehabilitation, establishing a healthy foundation, is based on the March-Delay stroke, which means that you have to keep the friction. So if we are practicing this and then add it to this, and then somebody, I guess Eric, but he's not here, was talking about as we go to the tip, we have to pronate the we have to follow the curve of the bow here with the weight of our arm, which means through our hand. And yes, the elbow is going to turn a little bit, yeah.
So I am gonna go set up the food. So why don't we do like 7 minutes of Q&A over
Okay,
what we've talked
okay.
about? Did you have something else?
Well,
you
I
wanted to go over?
wanted just to show you
that's
like
right.
some part of a concert of my kids, just so you see that all this freedom of motion really works. And maybe
That's
we'll do
perfect.
that, and then we can have Q&A and then run down.
Okay, and then so we have some just kind of light salads and things to tide us over and some coffee. And then we have, after our break at around 12, we have 3 students who are gonna play, one playing Becker Gavat and including some shifting, and then all the way to Vinyavsky 1, and then circling back to Vinyavsky 2. So we're gonna have a wide range of students where you can see Mimi will be very interactive to show this is what I was talking about and this is what I would do with this student. So, and you are welcome to ask questions during the class. The students know that the class is for us, while Mimi will also, of course, be giving them ideas for practice. So, hang out here, and if I'm not back after the movie's over, then maybe you can do some Q&A.
Okay, great. So I wanted to show you this, maybe it's going to be a little long, but it's a Corelli Concerto Grosso. I have my advanced group of students. We have a group called the Virtuosi, and I take them on tour, and we were in Chile and in Argentina. We're actually my 4th time taking kids to Argentina last summer. So I'll show this to you. We can skip around a little bit, but let's see if I can get this right. Okay, that's not what I want. Okay, yeah. They did, they played lots of different music, new pieces that have been written for us, and then old standards like Preludium and Allegro is something over the ages I've done with these kids for the last 40 years. Yeah.
Were most of those high school students?
Yeah, the youngest here was probably 14 to 17, 18. Yeah, now they're a little older. Many of them are graduating at the end of this year. So then, you start over again, but I have a couple of 14-year-olds that are really wonderful. So, you always think when the older ones graduate, oh, I'm bereft. That's going to be it, but they keep coming. Yes.
I was struck by how much they moved like each other. They had kind of similar movements, even though they weren't like exactly together, like synchronized.
Yeah.
But did you pick out those dresses? Like
no,
they all picked out the same kind of dress that
Yeah.
like moved the same way.
I don't do that, and sometimes they're all green or black or whatever, but we got lucky this time. And on this tour, everybody had to come with such a small suitcase.
Oh, yeah.
So they picked well.
So about the moving, do you encourage your students to move a lot when they play? Because I find it helps some of my really tense students
Yes.
to try to,
Of course,
get
yes.
back on their feet. But how much is that a part of?
Well, everybody has to express themselves individually, but if the motion is too much and gets in the way, then of course we'll address that.
Right.
But it needs to be, yes, I don't teach just standing there, because I think the energy, as soon as these kids walk on the stage, when all of us walk on the stage, we have to already come with an energy that is just our field. And so what I do as a teacher, I try to allow them to release that energy, because I'm giving them the equipment with which to express themselves. And they've been playing together a long time, these kids. They start, in the very beginning grew. Not that many of these started exactly in Bloomington, because some of them moved to Bloomington to be there. They travel in. But they have been playing in a group situation for years. Yes.
I have a question about working within because they're in a small ensemble, they're not in a big orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
Do they also participate in a big orchestra, and how does that translate the movement to them sitting into
Well, they are, this year, this group, plus a few more, are in the chamber orchestra, because we're playing all the 4 seasons with Luke Sue, who is a laureate at the Indianapolis Violin competition. So every year I'll have a different kind of venue, and these kids then that go on to play in a big orchestra, they go to conservatory or come to IU. They play in a big orchestra with no trouble at all, because they have been trained so well in chamber music and chamber orchestra, and some of them play some have played in a youth symphony. They also do side by side with the Indianapolis Symphony. So
Are they in their school programs?
some of them, yeah.
Some are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends, time is such a premium, as we all know, with all of our kids, that we need them to practice 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And if they're in too many extracurricular activities, they can't do this. And so these kids, they've chosen, I think all of these kids want to be musicians. So they had to make that choice already a few years ago. But then we have other groups of kids who they're not going to be musicians. They're going to be engineers or scientists or whatever.
So how does the movement translate to sitting? Do they just sit in their chair and?
You know, they sit there,
Or do
I
they
guess
move
they,
less,
yeah,
or?
I'm sure they move less,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So maybe that parlays into what she's saying. When you go on tour, is the repertoire always memorized? I mean,
Yeah.
it's beautiful to see such balanced movement and beautiful tone, but I know that really also helps to be, you know.
These kids memorize incredibly. I don't. I didn't grow up in my program, so I'm kind of old-fashioned. I have to memorize, you know, or I get it by just having taught these pieces a lot. But my partner, Tara Rod, wrote a piece for this tour, which is, he can't memorize it. He played it with Vadim Glucksmann and, the principal cellos of the Cleveland Orchestra. Forgot his name, a couple in the summer. And they couldn't believe it. These kids, they just memorize everything. They're memorizing the four seasons, and they'll play it from memory, because it's not a problem for them.
Even chamber orchestra, they'll memorize.
Yeah, well, in our chamber orchestra, well, this particular concert, yeah.
Are you going to talk anything about double stops and chords?
Chords, do I have time to talk about double stops and chords?
Yeah, we got a minute.
Chords, double stops, I use the Trot book called Melodious Double Stops, and I'll introduce that book to them around book 6 in the Suzuki repertoire, so around Handel sonatas, and maybe even a little earlier in book 5. But I have them, maybe the first double stops are when they're tuning their open strings. And then there are a few double stop places in Seitz concertos in book 4. I can't give you a very specific sequence of answers because I don't really have one. Except that when we get to double stops in the scales, which we'll do later, I first have them play separate and then together.
But you don't do that in the scale until they're in, do you do
Well,
that at
that's
the
in
beginning?
3-octave scales. But then there are pieces that we give them that have double stops, like in the Fletcher tunes, the pieces that Stanley Fletcher wrote with Paul Roland, there are some double stop little pieces. In fiddle tunes that they're playing, we'll add those. So I don't find that it's so problematic. Maybe that's why I haven't made a specific sequence for it.
When you, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
So as far as when you start with the scales as a warm-up before the lesson begins, you don't do double stops?
I do with my university, with the more advanced students. Yeah, like these kids are all playing double stops in their scales. Yeah.
How about vibrato?
Vibrato, that is a very big topic.
We can probably, we can incorporate that into the master class because I'm sure
Okay,
one of them
yeah.
will need some help with vibrato.
Okay. Yeah.
So downstairs in the fountain room, we have, well, first let's give Mimi a big round. Doing everything she wanted in 2 hours, but luckily we have an hour and a half more. So we will go downstairs. There are bathrooms upstairs and downstairs. If you go out to the left, they're just on top of each other. We have, everything is vegetarian downstairs. One drawback is they forgot to bring coffee cups and creamer and sugar, and so I raided the Duke Faculty Lounge and found what I could. So the lids may not fit with the right, there's several options you can cobble together. There's no natural sugar, because what I could find was only sweeteners, so hopefully you either like it black or with 0-calorie sweeteners.
So apologies for the not ideal coffee situation. We have water and hummus. There's a regular hummus, a cilantro, lime hummus. Anyway, you'll see. It looks delicious, and then we'll mingle for 20 minutes or so, and then meet downstairs in Bone Hall for the master class.
I was late.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not here, you are. Right on my phone too.
Yeah.
No idea what
She's
Like the jacket.
Hey, it's good to see you. Oh my gosh, so if you don't miss it, you'll text me. Yeah. How are you doing? Oh my Trick them into, that's how I work, trick them into learning something. Well, if they ever ask me back, I will share my It was a pleasure to work with them. It was so fun. They were such nice kids. And it was nice that, you guys were handling all the background. The fact that I could just show up and do my stuff, you made it so easy.
Solo como siempre. Sí, porque todavía teníamos clases y me dijo, yo pensé que íbamos a terminar, tranquilo, tranquilo, es que él no dijo muchas clases. No. Tal vez el niño cuenta muchas tampoco y solo la mamá quiere.
I'm recording this conversation, okay?